Seeing the campfire, the alien vampire woman approached me. I was shocked by what she said. The fire was a stupid idea. I knew that even as I lit it, crouched in my battered suit, coaxing a flicker of flame from the chemically treated sticks I'd salvaged from the emergency pack. Fire wasn't efficient, not on a moon with half an atmosphere and less than half a chance of breathable air. It wouldn't keep me alive. My suit did that, humming gently in my ears, keeping my lungs full of recycled hope. But the fire gave me something else, something primal. Warmth I didn't need, light I did, and company I sorely lacked, even if that company was just the ghost of a campfire crackling in a dead crater. I sat cross-legged on a flat rock, helmet off. The air was thin, but just thick enough here to suck into my lungs without instant regret. My eyes burned a little. The sky was 2/3 ink, 1/3 cosmic graffiti, streaks of nebulae twisting like the universe was in the mood to show off. A few stars twinkled in mocking silence. Somewhere up there was Earth, probably still spinning, probably still ignoring my distress signal. I poked the fire with a rod made from a snapped antenna and muttered to it like a half-mad monk. "That's right, Burn. Make yourself useful. At least you respond when I poke you." The fire did not respond, which meant it was already my favorite conversational partner on this rock. That was when I saw her. Movement, slight but enough to jolt my spine straight. A silhouette against the jagged crater rim, slender, still, watching. I squinted through the haze of the firelight, heart jackhammering in my throat. My fingers inched toward the plasma cutter at my belt, the closest thing I had to a weapon, if you didn't count my personality. Then she stepped forward. She walked like gravity owed her money, graceful, deliberate, not quite human. Not quite anything I'd ever seen. She wore a dark form-fitting suit that shimmered faintly, like it was absorbing the light instead of reflecting it. Her hair was silver, long and unbound, flowing behind her like a cape woven from moonlight. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes, stars above, her eyes glowed a faint violet, like twin dying stars. And ears, long, elegant, tapered back like they could slice the silence. She looked like an elf that had wandered into a science lab and decided to stay. I stood up slowly, cutter in hand, pulse drumming like a warning klaxon. "All right," I said, voice too high. "If you're here to eat me, just know I'm high in sodium and low in morale." She blinked once, tilted her head, then she looked at the fire. And then she did something I did not expect. She smiled, a small, sad thing. Her lips barely parted, and her voice, when it came, was velvet lined with ice. "I haven't felt warmth in 1,000 years. I stared. The fire popped between us. "I mean," I said carefully, "you could have just asked to borrow my jacket." Her gaze slid to me. Not predatory, not curious either. Something else. Something old. "You are human," she said as if that were an accusation. "Last time I checked." I waggled my wrist. "Wristwatch still shows existential dread?" "Yep, still me." Her expression didn't change, but the air around her seemed to exhale. She took another step forward, closer to the fire. I didn't move, mostly because my knees were in a heated debate with my brain about whether fleeing or fainting would be more productive. "I am Virexa," she said simply. "You woke me." "Great, that's just fantastic," I muttered. "I crash land, burned through my rations, and now I've woken a space vampire. Next up, hostile wildlife and an ironic death." She looked at me with an intensity that made my blood consider reversing direction. "I am not like the others," she said. I swallowed. "That's, comforting?" Her eyes softened a fraction. "You are afraid?" "Well, yeah. I was hoping to die alone. Now it seems like I'll have company." Virexa's mouth curved in something almost like amusement. She crouched near the fire, close enough for the flames to paint golden arcs across her face. "I remember this," she whispered. "Fire, laughter, life. We used to gather around these, before the cold." I opened my mouth, then closed it. Because what do you say to someone who talks about fire like it's a ghost? The silence stretched between us, broken only by the crackle of flame. Finally, I offered her one of the last ration bars. She took it like she wasn't sure if it was food or an insult. Chocolate, I said. It won't change your life, but it might change your mood. She bit into it and smiled. Real this time, with fangs. Oh, good, I thought. She is a vampire. Virexa sat by the fire like it owed her something. Maybe it did. Maybe after 1,000 years in stasis, hibernation, cryo-sleep, time-out, a person earned the right to stare into dancing flames with all the melancholy of a poet on a deadline. She didn't say much at first, just chewed that ration bar like it was foreign matter, and occasionally eyed me like she was deciding if I was worth talking to or just another example of evolutionary misfire. So, I said, scratching the back of my neck, I feel like I should offer you a drink, but all I've got is recycled water and enough caffeine pills to resurrect a mammoth. She looked at me curious. Caffeine? Yeah, synthetic stimulant. Makes humans feel alive, which is ironic because too much of it can kill you. She tilted her head. Your species is strange. Thank you. We try very hard. Her gaze drifted back to the fire. It reflected in her violet eyes, twin galaxies caught in glass. For a long moment she didn't speak. Then softly she said, We fed on warmth. Not just heat, not fire, but the kind that comes from proximity, emotion, the pulse between minds, connection. I blinked. You're saying you were psychic vampires? She didn't blink. We are. Though the old words don't quite fit. Vampirism implies a hunger without restraint. We were symbiotic. Mostly. Mostly, I echoed. That's comforting. Her lips twitched. Until the wars came. Until the suns dimmed. Until we chose silence over annihilation. Yikes, I said eloquently. So, you froze yourselves? Our last refuge. A vault beneath this moon. We believed time would erode the memory of our name. We were wrong. So you're telling me I crash-landed on a moon that's basically a buried crypt full of ancient psychic space vampires? She looked at me without a hint of irony. Yes. And you woke up because of me? You triggered a seismic beacon. It sent a pulse into the deep vaults. I was close to the surface. I rose. The others remain. I rubbed my temples. Of all the moons in all the sectors, in all the forgotten corners of space, I had to crash into this one. You are lucky, I gave her a long look. Define lucky. You woke me, not them. There it was. That them wrapped in silence and dread. I didn't press, partially because she was already fingering the hilt of something curved and metallic at her hip that I hadn't noticed earlier, and partially because I suspected the answer came with teeth and a death count. We fell into a strange stillness. Not awkward, exactly. Just new. My fire hissed. The sky above spun slowly. Moons of other planets bleeding faint light across the crater. The stars looked closer here, like they were leaning in to eavesdrop. So, I said, because silence made me itchy, what now? You gonna drain me of my precious human vibes, or? She arched an eyebrow. You are remarkably flippant for a man stranded without rescue. I grinned. Yeah, but I've got great cheekbones. It balances out. Virexa exhaled a sound that might have been a laugh. Or a sigh. Hard to tell. I do not feed like that, she said. Not anymore. I haven't touched another mind in centuries. The hunger fades when there's nothing left to feel. That is the saddest thing I've ever heard, I said. And I once watched a guy cry because his sandwich floated away during a low-grav picnic. A beat, then a chuckle. It was quiet, rusty, like her voice had forgotten how. I smiled. Progress. As night deepened, if you could call it night when the stars never slept, we talked. Not about deep things, about the dumbest stuff. I told her about Earth's obsession with cats, which she found baffling, and then about my job charting dead planets for resource feasibility. I left out the part where my employer, Zenith Corp., likely wouldn't bother sending a rescue. Not when the signal was weak and my contract had an acceptable loss clause printed in fine print. She told me about her people, the Myrians, how their ships once glided through the ion streams of collapsing stars, how they wove emotion into architecture, They're cities designed to amplify connection. We shaped sound, she said, built homes that sang, now all gone, except her. She leaned forward, her hand hovering near the fire. The heat shimmered against her skin, which I realized didn't sweat, probably didn't even need to. I envy this, she murmured. This small, bright defiance. You light it to push back the dark, knowing it cannot last. I nodded quietly. It's the same reason we tell jokes. She looked at me. To delay the end? No, I said. To spit in its face. That got a smile out of her, a real one. And for a moment beneath the stars and the ancient silence of the crater, I didn't feel alone. Not entirely. The fire was smaller the next night, reduced to a lazy flicker nestled in its shallow pit. I fed it what was left of my synthetic tinder strips, tossing them in one at a time like I was feeding breadcrumbs to a very small, very flammable god. The sky above was dark and unchanging. This moon didn't spin fast enough for sunsets or sunrises. The stars just hung there, watching as if waiting for the punchline of a very long cosmic joke. Virexa returned just as I was mid-soliloquy, explaining to the fire why I was not emotionally prepared to eat the last of my teriyaki nutrient slab, texture variant B. She emerged from the shadows like a thought I hadn't meant to think, quiet, smooth, wearing the same dark suit and the same unreadable expression. But something about her posture was different tonight. Tense, tightly wound. She didn't sit right away. Something wrong? I asked, scooting over to make room on the flattest piece of moon rock I'd claimed as a bench. There was movement below, she said, her voice low, like she didn't want the crater to hear. In the deep stone, the vault stirs. Okay, I said, drawing the word out like I was pulling taffy made of anxiety. That's not ominous, not at all. Virexa finally sat, eyes locked on the fire. The seismic pulse you triggered did more than wake me. It may have disturbed others. I stared at her. Others like you? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached into a small compartment on her belt and pulled out a thin, folded panel, a sheet of memory carbon that unrolled into a holomap with a shimmer of blue light. There are 7 vaults. I was placed in isolation, containment. The rest were not peaceful. Oh, good, I said, resting my forehead in my palm. I have awoken an ancient evil. I'm that guy now. Virexa pointed to a flickering node on the map. This one, it is active. The stasis field is weakening. It may already be broken. Broken like someone forgot to update their firmware? Or broken like space werewolves about to hatch? Her gaze slid to me. More the latter. I exhaled slowly. Of course it is. The holomap hummed quietly between us. She tapped another icon, and the projection shifted to show a diagram of the inner vault. Honeycomb structures made of layered metallic crystal, humming with soft light and eerie symmetry. I leaned closer, fascinated in spite of myself. This tech, it's way beyond anything I've seen. You guys made this how long ago? She glanced at me. Before your sun cooled enough for Earth to form oceans? Oh, neat. So, just slightly outdated. Virexa closed the map with a flick of her fingers. We need to go there. The containment must be restored. Let me guess, I said. You need me because I have opposable thumbs and poor decision-making skills. You are the only other mind I can trust, she said flatly. I stared at her. Wow, your standards are tragically low. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The path to the vault was carved by erosion and time, winding through jagged ridges like a scar etched deep into the moon's surface. We traveled on foot, my suit's stabilizers compensating for the weak gravity, while Virexa glided beside me with all the effortless grace of a ballet dancer who happened to also be a high-level threat on every Galactic watch list. We didn't talk much on the way, but she did pause once to ask, do all humans sing when they're nervous? I wasn't singing, I said indignant. You repeated the phrase, don't die today, to the tune of something called boogie shoes. Right. That's a motivational mantra. Very sacred, passed down through generations of terrified idiots. Virexa nodded solemnly as if making a mental note. I see. The entrance to the vault was buried under a blanket of collapsed rock. but she found the control node beneath the dust. A small obelisk, its surface laced with pulsing sigils. She pressed her hand to it. Her skin flared with light where it touched the stone. A low rumble rolled beneath us. "Is it supposed to do that?" I asked. "No," she said. The stone split with a hiss, revealing a descending tunnel lined with living metal and light. And from the depth below, something screamed. Not a sound exactly. More like the memory of a scream, a mental echo that made my teeth ache. Virexa stiffened. "One has awakened." I reached for my plasma cutter, which felt very small suddenly. "How many are we dealing with here?" She turned to me, eyes lit like twin novas. "If we are fortunate, just one." The tunnel yawned beneath us, wide enough to swallow a dreadnought and just as welcoming. Light pulsed along the walls in rhythmic patterns that made my stomach twist, like the architecture itself had a heartbeat. I followed Virexa down, trying to step with confidence while my suit's internal systems quietly screamed about atmospheric inconsistencies and unidentifiable radiation sources. Honestly, I was just happy the air didn't smell like vampire. "This place gives me the creeps," I muttered. Virexa glanced back. The vault was designed to induce disorientation, an early defense mechanism. The pathways shift for intruders. "Fantastic," I said. "So it's a haunted house and a maze. All we're missing is a guy with a chainsaw and mommy issues." She didn't respond. Probably because humor's not a big priority when you're worried about ancient psychic murderers waking up under your feet. But the further we descended, the more I needed jokes to stay upright. Humor is my emotional bubble wrap. The corridor walls grew stranger. What had started as elegant metallic stone now shimmered with embedded filaments. Threads of bio-light that responded to our presence, illuminating symbols and patterns I couldn't begin to understand. I brushed one with my glove and felt a static jolt ripple up my arm. The vault didn't just sense us, it saw us. "I don't suppose this thing has an elevator?" I asked, eyeing the ever-descending slope. "We did not believe in unnecessary automation," Virexa said. "Right, because nothing says advanced civilization like stairs." At last, the corridor opened into a chamber so vast it made my brain squint. The ceiling arched so high above us that it disappeared into mist. Or maybe it was a cloud of engineered nanodust. I had long since stopped trying to tell the difference. In the center of the space stood a structure, a spire of crystalline plates, spinning slowly, humming with a frequency I could feel in my molars. "That's the containment matrix?" I asked. "Yes," Virexa said. Or, "It was." She stepped forward, frowning. I followed, and that's when I saw it. Hairline fractures running along the crystal surfaces, like veins in a dying leaf. One of the plates had already collapsed inward, revealing a hollow core lined with what looked like sleep pods. Except only one was still sealed. The rest were empty. "Okay," I whispered, plasma cutter suddenly less comforting. "Now would be a great time for an instruction manual, or, like, a really passive-aggressive warning sign." Virexa's fingers moved quickly over the matrix interface, shifting panels, realigning filaments. The vault responded, flickering with ghostly data, as though reluctant to wake up. A projection flared to life. A tall figure with elongated limbs, long ears like Virexa's, but twisted at odd angles. His eyes were jagged cuts of black, like something had hollowed them out and left the darkness behind. "Meet Karun," she said, voice taut. "He was once our leader, a philosopher. Then, something changed. He believed emotion itself was weakness. He wanted to sever us from connection, turn our gifts into weapons." "Cool," I said. "So you sealed him in here, with roommates?" "Yes," she said. "Now only he remains." The projection shifted. Karun's image turned toward us, and though it was just a recording, I could feel the echo of his presence. A mental pressure, like a door trying to open in my skull. "I'm not gonna lie," I said. "I think I just heard my own thoughts insult me." "He is broadcasting," Virexa said grimly. "Testing for minds, looking for weaknesses. Well, he's gonna find plenty over here. I'm mostly held together by sarcasm and freeze-dried noodles." Then something changed in the projection. The image of Karun blinked, looked directly at me, and smiled. I do not like that, I said, backing up. No one should ever smile like they know where your childhood trauma lives. Varexa stepped between me and the image. We need to reseal the matrix. I must use my link to override the remaining nodes. And what do I do? You keep him distracted. Oh, good, I said. I'll just juggle or something. But before I could make another bad decision, the vault shuddered. A ripple of force rolled through the floor, and from the shadows near the edge of the spire, something stepped out, tall, gaunt, and very much not a projection. His presence hit me like the sound of glass breaking in a locked room. Karun was awake, and he was smiling at me. Karun stepped into the vaulted chamber like someone arriving fashionably late to his own apocalypse. Tall, too tall, with skin the color of moonshadow and ears that curved up and back like carved obsidian blades. His eyes were bottomless, not in a romantic, poetic way, but in the way black holes are. Places light goes to die. He moved like gravity had given him personal clearance, and every step whispered with a sound I couldn't quite place, like old metal remembering it used to be alive. Naturally, I panicked in the time-honored human tradition. "Hi," I said, voice cracking like a teenager at prom. "Nice place you've got here. Very eternal void chic. I love what you've done with the terrifying architecture." Varexa didn't laugh. She was too busy interfacing with the spire, her long fingers dancing over the crystal controls. Light flared and flickered with each contact, panels shifting and rotating like a puzzle solving itself one step too slowly. Karun tilted his head. "You are not Marion," he said. His voice was wrong, like hearing thunder through broken speakers. "Nope," I said, backing up, weapon raised even though it felt about as useful as a butter knife at a meteor shower. "Name's Eli, professional explorer, amateur disaster magnet." He took another step forward, and I swear the temperature dropped 10 degrees. "But you carry warmth," he said. "A mind unguarded, software, curious." Open, I glanced over at Varexa. "He's not flirting with me, is he? Please tell me that's not what's happening." Karun chuckled, and it was like hearing ice crack across a frozen sea. I remember the first warmth I devoured. It screamed. "Okay," I said. "We're officially back in not flirting territory. Good talk." Then he raised his hand. No weapons, no gestures, just a subtle twist of the wrist, and I felt it. Pressure, not physical, but mental, emotional, like something slithering behind my thoughts, looking for cracks to slip through. "Varexa," I barked, voice shaking. "Little help!" She didn't respond, too deep in the override sequence, the spire now glowing with spiraling fractals of data. I turned back to Karun, forcing every ounce of stubborn human resolve into my skull. "Okay, pal," I said. "Listen, I know you're some big-shot ancient space vampire with a superiority complex, but I've got 3 things you don't." He paused. "Do tell. 1, a sense of humor. 2, caffeine addiction. And 3, I lunged, firing the plasma cutter at the nearest crystal node just behind him, causing it to explode in a blast of searing white light. "Bad aim." The room shook. Karun reeled, not hurt, but surprised, maybe even impressed. I ran for cover behind a fractured support beam, heart hammering like an overexcited drumline. "Eli," Varexa called, "I need more time." "Of course you do," I shouted back. "Time is everyone's favorite resource. Who needs oxygen when you've got time?" Karun appeared on the other side of the beam, silent and sudden. His hand reached for me, and I swear I felt memories drain from the edges of my mind, slipping like water through cracked glass. Then, a pulse, sharp, harmonic, like a tuning fork struck inside my brain. Varexa stood at the center of the spire, her form lit from within. Her eyes burned brighter than I'd ever seen. 2 stars reignited. "Karun," she said, voice layered with echoes. "You are not welcome." He turned toward her, the first flicker of hesitation in his expression. "You are alone. You cannot hold me." "No," she said, "but we can." And just like that, her hand stretched toward me. A thread of light arced between us, thin, quivering, and warm. I didn't think. I took her hand. In that moment, our minds touched. I saw fragments of her memory, Suns dying in slow motion, cities of light crumbling into silence, laughter echoing across crystal towers. She saw mine, Earth, crowded and noisy and chaotic. My mother's hands, my old cat Maxwell, who used to knock over plants and look proud about it. My favorite terrible movie, which I'd watch 14 times because it reminded me of home. Emotions surged between us like fire through dry brush. Karun staggered, snarling. No, no, connection is weakness. No, Varexa said softly. Connection is resistance. Together we poured that flood of memory of shared warmth into the spire. The vault responded, panels snapping into alignment, beams of light lancing through the chamber. Karun howled, staggering back as the air shuddered around him. He was being pulled, not physically but mentally, psychically, drawn back into the core where the last sealed pod waited. I saw his face as the field closed. It wasn't rage, it was fear. And then he was gone, sealed again. The chamber fell quiet. I slumped to the floor, gasping. So, that went well. Virexa, now glowing a little less dramatically, sat beside me. You are unusually persistent for your kind. I nodded, still catching my breath. And you are terrifying. But you know, in a majestic space, queen kind of way. She smiled. This time it reached her eyes. The silence after sealing Karun was so thick, it felt like the vault itself was exhaling, after millennia of holding its breath. The hum of the spire quieted to a soft thrum, like a great engine shifting into standby. Light still pulsed through the crystalline walls, but now it was steady, gentle, no longer frayed with tension. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling so high it might as well have been the sky. My heart was still trying to catch up to my lungs, and my legs had fully committed to never moving again. So, I said between ragged breaths, when were you planning to mention that you can psychically link minds with people? Varexa crouched beside me, her long ears twitching slightly in what I was starting to recognize as amusement. The opportunity had not yet presented itself. Uh-huh. And what do you call that back there? An opportunity? Because I call it a live-action fever dream. She offered me a hand, and I took it. Her grip was firm, warm, steady. Not what I'd expect from an ancient vampire who used to nap inside stone coffins like it was a lifestyle. We climbed out of the vault together, retracing our steps through the corridors. Though this time, they didn't shift underfoot. Whatever intelligence governed the vault's architecture now recognized us. Or maybe it was just grateful not to be housing a psychic death god anymore. Outside, the stars hadn't moved, but something in the air had changed. The moon felt different, lighter. Karun won't escape again? I asked as we crested a ridge near my campfire site. Not in this cycle, Varexa replied. The vault's energy is finite. Containment will hold until it burns out again, in perhaps 1,000 years. I gave her a look. Comforting. I'll just pencil it in on my great-great-great-grandkids' calendar. She stopped walking and looked up at the sky, at the familiar sea of stars, unblinking and eternal. He sought to erase connection, to sever what makes us real, and you reminded me. Yeah, I've got that effect, I said. Show up uninvited, make a mess, accidentally reboot your emotional circuitry. It's a gift. She tilted her head. You are different now. I thought about that, about how scared I'd been that first night when she stepped out of the dark and said she hadn't felt warmth in 1,000 years. I thought about the way I used to fill silences with jokes just to avoid hearing myself think, about how I'd come here to be alone, and now I didn't want to be. Yeah, I said, maybe I am. We returned to the campsite. The fire had gone out, but a few embers still glowed, like they were waiting for us. I knelt and nudged them with a stick, adding a sliver of old polymer packing foam. The flames returned with a quiet sigh. Varexa sat opposite me. This time she didn't hover like a ghost. She pulled her knees close, curled her long fingers around a steaming mug I handed her. A thermal cup of repurposed hydrogel that barely passed as tea. What is this? She asked, sniffing it with suspicion. Mintish, I said. Or at least the machine says it is. Earth flavor profiles are a little optimistic sometimes. She took a sip. Her ears perked slightly. It is. Not unpleasant. That's the highest praise I've ever gotten for my cooking? We sat there, staring into the fire. No monsters, no collapsing vaults, no echoes of ancient minds screaming through our skulls. Just two people who'd survived something strange together. Two people with very little in common, except perhaps the ache of being alone too long. So, I said after a long silence, what now? Varexa looked at the stars again. Now, I must decide who I want to be. Join the club, I said. I'm still figuring that out myself. But if you're not busy, I hear there's a derelict science station orbiting the next moon that might have a working comms array, and a vending machine that only takes sarcasm as payment. She arched a brow. Are you inviting me? I'm not saying it's a date, I said. But if you show up, I'll share the last of my teriyaki nutrient slab, texture variant B. A smile tugged at the corner of her lips. You do make compelling offers. We watched the fire burn lower again. There was no urgency in the moment, no looming threat, just space and time, and the understanding that we were no longer alone. The flames flickered. Above us, the stars blinked, and somewhere in the distance, the universe moved on. Just a little warmer than before. The end.